the items, put them in the container, get the shipping line to bring it down to Nigeria, pay the freight, do all the necessary paperwork. Prior to that, mommy would have had like an agreement with the supplier. The quantity, the color, the pricing, everything would have been aligned before, because this is international trade. Once that is sorted out, mommy would have given something like an LC. That LC means it's called a letter of credit, to show that once the cargo reaches Nigeria at some point, payment will be made. Mommy will have kept that money in the bank. So the supplier, without paying, the supplier will ship the goods. Based on whatever is agreed, it could be 60 days after shipment, it could be 30 days after shipment. Once the vessel leaves China, mommy's bank and the supplier's bank will talk to themselves. Based on that, there will be an order to release the funds. You might release partial funds, you might release full funds. The shipper gets his money, but by then the container is already on the ship coming to Nigeria. So the transit time between Nigeria and China is about 30 to 35 days. While the ship is on water, the necessary interaction is going on between mommy and our Chinese supplier. Once the cargo gets here, mommy gets what we call the bills of lading. With that bill of lading, she authorizes another freight forwarder locally here to come to us, APMT, and the shipping line that brings the cargo to Nigeria, or to release the cargo. So mommy must hand over what you call the bill of lading, the original bill of lading. They normally come in 3 copies. So once your hand goes over, then the shipping line can now start processing the release of the cargo. Now, there's another interface. I'm sure you hear about government revenue, government duty payments. So for the fabrics, it attracts, because when countries trade, they apply tariff. And tariff is what you use to increase your economic activity. For example, this is your school uniform. The government will place, like say, 10% or 20%, meaning that any school uniform company that will use it, because they want to encourage local manufacturers, they want to encourage job opportunities, they want to have opportunities for young people like you where you can work, rather than somebody else go and bring the finished goods from China. So that's on the economic side. So back to the logistics side. The agent mommy engage will go to customs, do what we call an assessment. So we have what we call a PAR, Pre-Arrival Assessment Report. That is going to explain what it is that mommy needs to pay to get that container of school uniform out of APMT. Once that report is presented, you're going to see everything is there. The HS code, the value, the VAT, the VAT, the total amount. There are different settings. It's self-explanatory. Mommy gives the funds to the agent goes and makes a payment. He pays to the government. Government issues a receipt. Then the agent will go to other government agencies, like Standard Organization of Nigeria. They will have to check if the school uniform meeting the right quality. Does it meet some certain standards? Is it the breathable material? You're going to be using with students, right? Is it the material that when you iron it, it's going to, for example, maybe it has a composition of polyester and cotton. They will check all these standards. That school uniform actually meets the standard that mommy set before she ordered it. So once all those checks are confirmed, the cargo is released. The agent will go to the shipping line, pay the shipping charges, which are called local charges. Once they make all those payments on behalf of mommy, then the cargo is released. That agent now comes to APMT, presents all these documents, so we verify.
Oil export. Government is always pushing to encourage non-oil export because, to be honest, Nigeria is an import-dependent country. I'm sure you might have studied that in your social studies or economics. We're purely an import-dependent country. We import almost everything into Nigeria, which is not sustainable for us in the long run. Just imagine, look at the level China is today. China actually imports less than 10%. About 90% of products go out of China. And this is what is bringing economic boom for them in China, because they are doing a lot. And of course, the plan, this administration, subsequent ones, is to see how we can encourage that production, that economic activity, so that young boys and girls like you, by the time you graduate, you become engineers, you become computer scientists, you become programmers, you become AI specialists, you become brand managers. You know, we can also grow the Nigerian brand. So this is where the export comes in. So local entrepreneurs will find, mostly, like I said, is cash crop. Cashew, cocoa, sesame seeds, palm kernel, these are some of the products that they export. Now, look at this carefully. These are raw materials. When you ship raw materials, it's still in raw. That's why it's called raw material. It's in raw form. The value is very small because there's no value add. You plant, you harvest, then you ship. You're going to get very small money. I'm sure you all like chocolates here, right? So let me give you an analysis. Cocoa is not grown in Europe. It's only grown in Africa. Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria. We are the biggest cocoa producers in the world. But we don't produce chocolate. All your chocolate comes from Switzerland. It has to grow raw. Maybe they get 20% value from it. They pay them less money because they are taking it in raw form. When they get abroad, the buyers aggregate, then they process it and convert it into chocolate. Part of it is also used in your beverage, your Milo, your Bonvita. All this is now done abroad because we do not have the technology value add. When we start focusing on finished products or semi-finished products, that Nigeria will begin to earn sufficient forex. We'll be able to get value for our products. I will give you another instance. In Ghana today, they have a policy that a certain percentage of the cocoa must be processed in Ghana. Companies are now forced to set up in Ghana, whereby they are now processing this chocolate, this cocoa, and making it into chocolate, which is now sold globally. So imagine all the sesame we send out, all the cashew, all the palm kernel. This is used in the pharmaceutical industry, in soap making, so many things that goes out of Nigeria here. And most recently, I'm sure you've all heard about, you know what EVs are? Correct. Everybody knows what an EV is, electric vehicles. What do EVs run on? What? Electricity, batteries, yeah? Now, what do you think powers these batteries? Who has an idea? What powers these batteries? EV batteries? Lead. No. Madam? Super. Those batteries, the lead batteries are for smaller appliances. For cars, you need more capacity, you need more power. So what they use now is lithium. And Nigeria has a big deposit of lithium. But guess what? The lithium is not processed. It is taken out raw. Like you see it, it comes there like stone. When you see it, you will not know it's like stone, like a rock. But when it gets to China, it's processed. That is where they get the mineral component they now use to build those batteries. Now, those batteries are now sold back to Nigeria in millions of naira. So, I hope I have inspired somebody today that I will look at the Nigerian economy and find where can I make a difference. There are so many sectors, there are so many industries. Some of you maybe you have not decided yet what it is you want to do. But I believe you visiting the country today will definitely open your mind and for you to understand that you really have a role to play. Education is not just what you absorb, it is how you apply what you have learned. And that is how you can change your future. You can change the future of Nigeria. Thank you very much. Questions?
So, as you were talking, I looked it up. So, you talk about global going out of the country. Instead of what it costs to build a small plant, instead of 50,000 to 250,000 USD, which is, I think, unlikely for most people to have. Just so, what are some raw materials that could turn into maybe small processing plants or small processing manufacturing processes that maybe the average person could get into if you have any that you know?
So there are a lot of sectors that people can get involved in. Of course, there are also small scale ones and there are large scale ones. For example, I'll say, which one comes to mind? Yeah, paints. If you notice now, you know there are big paint companies in Nigeria, and there are people also import these chemicals. We are beginning to see a lot of boutique paint makers now. You don't have to buy from the big brands like the Megas, like the Dulux and Co. There are small players now who do high quality, high grade paints, and they just buy the chemicals and they produce it themselves. So there's a lot happening in that space. I have seen people also doing processing plant for, what do you call it? I think they call it, is it gari, cassava chips, which is now being used. You know, if you are able to distill it properly, you can actually create ethanol. And ethanol is another fuel oil. There are some companies that use ethanol to burn their combustion engine. So ethanol is also big. But there are companies who are also converting the same cassava to starch. The spray starch you see. When we were growing up, we know about those foreign starch that comes in spray, but they are imported from the US. But now, there are so many Nigerian companies now who are now producing these items. So of course, there are lots and lots of companies that people can actually get involved in. Yeah?
So, I have a question concerning the import duty. A few years back, Visa, the company that works with the bank in order to help with import duties, payments can be received. There was a situation whereby Nigeria was importing so much that Visa had to reduce the amounts in which they helped Nigeria to import duty. How does such a situation affect a terminal like APM terminal in maybe bringing import duty, value-added tax, those kind of things?
Okay, thank you. So Visa is just a payment platform, it's only one. There are multiple payment platforms that you can use. Some people can use your traditional bank to make payment. So definitely, customers have different options to handle their payment processes. So if one doesn't work well, there are other options for you to ensure that you make those payments. So we really don't have that issue because customers will find somehow how to solve their payment issues. And sometimes we see people use their own funds, not necessarily the bank money, to do some of these import-export transactions. Yes, young man.
In scenarios where they are shipping the items from one place to another, and there are some scenarios where people will come and sneak into the ship to steal some items. So what will happen if they come out successful?
Thank you. So, I mean, international trade, like any other business, there are risks, there are issues. Sometimes we have scenarios like that. We call it pilferage, where a container is broken into and some of the items are taken away. And sometimes our security is able to arrest the people. Sometimes we don't get to find out because the place is quite big. We have close to up to 350, if not more, cameras strategically located. There's monitoring the terminal 24/7. But if a container is broken into, we have a standard, what we call claim policy. And for the owner of the cargo, we will compensate such an individual if any item is stolen from that person's container. The terminal will have an insurance policy that covers everything that we do, all kinds of liabilities, we have terminal liability, we have third party liability, we have as a business, there are some certain tools, some certain licenses that you need to have in order to operate. You know, it's a highly, I don't know, have you gone inside the terminal? No, oh, okay. There are a lot of big machines moving around. So accidents can happen, things can go wrong. So we have to ensure that we put some mitigating factors to manage this. So that's on the good side. But if an individual is found in a container, normally you don't find that coming from abroad to Nigeria from overseas. You find out from Nigeria going out because people want to leave that day, they want to japa. Yeah, but they will not do it the proper way. I think late last year, Nigerians are tough. Two people were found on the rudder of a ship. You know what? You've seen a diagram of a vessel before. You see the rudder. That's what does the direction. You see it's like this. When it moves like this, it moves to the other side. That's what steers. It's like the steering of a car. But in a vessel, in a ship, we call it rudder. So between the rudder and the bow, which is the bottom of the vessel, there's some space there. Two people, when the vessel left here, they climbed into that thing. And you won't believe they were in the sea until the vessel got to Brazil. From here. They were caught in Brazil. So then they were inside the ocean throughout. They were lying on top of that thing. Yeah, people do a lot of things to escape, to get away. So it's a big issue. We call it stowaway. So what we do, once we finish vessel operations, we do what we call a proper stowaway search. So the police will bring their dogs, they will go on board, the sniffer dogs will sniff around just to be sure that there's nobody hiding anywhere before we give the vessel clearance. So yes, this does happen once in a while. People are really desperate, they want to leave Nigeria at all costs. But of course, there's always a mechanism of preventing them. Yeah? Okay, madam.
Thank you. This is such an enlightenment for you, and I believe it should work towards it to make the economic better. Well, thank you. I want to ask a question concerning the area of you talked about some body that's in charge of maintaining the standard of the goods brought in.
Correct.
And now, over the years, we've heard of many goods that are Nigeria that are substandard. For example, recently I read about Shein and what we call it now, table, and that some of the goods that are bringing in have some chemicals that are not good for children, for the body. So how come we are still having this substandard goods when we have one instead? What is the problem?
Thank you, ma'am. So, like I said we are an import-dependent country. Almost, right now we're doing about 70-30%. So, to be honest, SON, that's what they're called. They are overwhelmed. The goods coming in are so much. So enforcement is still an issue. Improvement. So certainly some items will get through without meeting standards. It's all about enforcement. Do they have the required personnel? Do they have enough resources to do all these checks that they need to do? Because it's a lot of work, to be honest. It's a lot of work. So yes, despite that, even drugs, you hear times online on the news that some substantial drugs were found. You don't see the standards, they are there. NAFDAC is also there. NAFDAC checks for drugs, some checks for items. They do their best, they try. But of course, some goods will find their way. And another part which I do not want to bore you with, I don't want to go into too much technical. So I talked about those 3 steps. You satisfy customs, you satisfy which customs are the ones implementing government's trade policy. Meaning, oh, you can bring this, you cannot bring this. You remember there was a time they said any car above 15 years should not come in. That's also a way of regulating cars coming and to promote the sale of brand new cars in Nigeria. There are economic saboteurs. People will always want to beat the system. Yeah, there are economic saboteurs. People sometimes falsify documents. They bring you something and call it something else because they don't want to pay customs. duty, or because that item is prohibited, is banned, it's not allowed. For like, say, 10, 15 years ago, I think it was Obasanjo's regime, they were trying to promote local furniture in Nigeria, and they banned importation of furniture. People were bringing furniture from Turkey, from China, importing it. But government was trying to say, how can we encourage our local carpenters if you continue to bring this foreign? But people were finding their way around it. So you can bring plastics, bring electronics, and you bring to still improve the process. But of course, these are economic issues that government is trying to drive the right behavior. And another way they do this is by imposing this high tariff. Because you think that if we put a high tariff, that will discourage people from doing it. But I'm telling you, you're not there yet. This is business. We see a lot of things happening. Yeah. Any question from this side before we? Yeah. Please, Mike. Okay.
So most goods are transported. What about perishable goods? Like, is it advisable to use like transport perishable goods like sea?
Good question. Good question. So we have different kinds of cargo. We have what we call dry cargo, and we have wet cargo. Ruthie, are you going into the terminal?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when you go into the terminal, just keep that at the back of your mind. They're going to show you you see the dry containers. They're the ones that have multicolors. You see blue, yellow, red, all kinds of color. Then they're going to show you some specific containers. They are only white. Now, these white containers are what we call reefers. And these reefers are pretty much a container that has a compressor. It has a cooling system. So when you have perishable goods, we have a lot of them in the terminal. We have fish, we have fruits and vegetables. Sometimes we see vaccines, we see seedlings. These are the ones that are put in these reefers. So any cargo that needs to be kept in a temperature sensitive environment, you are advised to use a reefer container. Now these reefer containers, while they are on the vessel, coming from China for example, they are plugged to electricity 24/7. Yeah, it's like a normal fridge in your house, but it's a container. Now once we discharge that container here also, immediately we take it off the vessel, we put it in our yard, in our terminal, we also connect it to power. We also put it on so that it can be refrigerated. Now the essence of this is to maintain that set temperature, because if it's not cooling, then the perishable items you have brought will go bad. So yes, you can move perishable items with containers, but specialized containers that are built for that purpose. Yeah. Mike. Who has the mic?
Nigeria's exports are less than their imports. What exactly can the Nigeria Export Promotion Council do to improve this?
Good question. So the NEPC, Nigeria Export Promotion Council, they've been running a lot of initiatives over the years to encourage farmers, not just farmers, exporters, so that you can get real value from whatever you are exporting. But to be honest with you, what we are seeing, or I'll say from my own perspective, I think the merchants are the ones who are actually reaping the benefit more than the real farmers. So what it means that I can go to, for example, where they sell the cocoa now, I go mainly in Ondo State, I will go to Ondo and buy it from the farmers directly. Then I am the one, I'm not the farmer, but I will buy it at a very low rate. Then I will now send it overseas. I'm the one that will get the good dollar rate from the foreign buyers. Because sometimes the farmers don't have access to the real market. Then tries to create opportunities access to market for Nigerian farmers, for Nigerian, so that they can also have an avenue for them to meet with potential buyers, whereby they can now come together and strike a deal and have a proper commercial relationship, whereby that will thrive over a long period of time. So as the economy continues to grow, more and more people get to know how to push their product overseas. I believe that issue will gradually be resolved over time. But when you put your hand, oh, okay. So you want to say something? Okay. Good question. Okay, one more question so we round up. You have other things? Yeah?
So sir, that's specialized for people for 20 years. Is it possible in our country or it's another business we import?
Okay, good question. So last two questions. So the first one, so there's what we call, like I mentioned about insurance, there's maritime insurance. So long as we take your cargo from you, we have assumed responsibility and liability for that cargo. Once you give us the cargo, we put it in the container, and we issue you a document. That is a contract between you and me. In that contract, it's quite extensive, but the long and short of it is that if anything happens to it, we are responsible. However, we have some clearly defined limits that governs what you can claim. But just for your own knowledge, if anything happens to the vessel and your cargo is destroyed or falls inside the ocean, we pay you back. We will refund you the value of your cargo. It's repaid. The company will pay you for your loss. So you don't lose anything. We will pay you money for that consignment. The last, we also have reefers going out of Nigeria. So we have, like I said, we have a lot of fish. But there's a company you will not believe. They have a farm, and they farm shrimps in Nigeria, and they export to other countries. But these are private farms. Sometimes there are some rare fish that are caught within Nigerian waters that you don't find elsewhere. There are some people who are specialized in this. Once they catch those fishes, they bring them, and they send it overseas. So yes, you can use reefer container both in Nigeria or abroad, both ways. So long as your item needs to be chilled, then you can request. But also be mindful, because of the electricity, it's more expensive than the dry, because you will pay for electricity, because that container, like I said, is like a freezer. It must be working 24/7. It cannot go off. So there's additional cost of keeping it running, which is why it is more expensive. I hope a few of you will want to do something in maritime, you want to do something in trade, you want to do something in manufacturing, whatever it is, please, I want you to dream high, have an ambition, be bold, so that we can make what? Let's reverse this import dependence, so that we can also be like China and start exporting things more than importing things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is actually the second level of our supporting Logistic program. Last month we have NRC.
Okay.
So we went to the terminal. We saw the containers, and we asked some questions that how do they now travel to the hinterland and for export? Our top point was that some contain here. That is why we're here today.
Okay.
As a second leg.
Okay.
So that you'll be able to see and have an overview of how supply and logistics actually plays out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you. Quickly, just to answer our questions, I didn't go too much on the mode. I just focused on the trucking. However, we have the three modes in the terminal. So you will see, we have barging, whereby these are like smaller craft. They are not vessels, they are just flat bottom, being pushed by a tugboat. Those are what we call barges. So those are used to move containers from here to jetties. There are jetties around, both within Lagos and outside Lagos. Then we have the rail, whereby we load containers, we take them out by rail, we also bring them by rail. There are terminals around Lagos and outside Lagos where these containers are stuffed with all these export things I mentioned. The cocoa, the cashew, when they're stuffed, customs, where the paperwork, then we bring it into the terminal. So that is also there. Then of course, if you want to use a truck can also bring it into the terminal. But the rest assured, you will see everything when you go inside the terminal. At least now you've heard about it. Thank you very much.